hurricane disaster along the Passaic River. It was good to have you up there. Appreciate all the good work, and FEMA gets high marks from a lot of the people that I represent. I'd also like to associate myself with some of the remarks that Mr. Dix made initially in terms of cyber. Who's doing what, I think, is pretty important. So my questions sort of focus on a lot of what happens in this country depends on investments in research and development. What are your department's priorities in that area? I've been looking over your budget. There's some reductions in R&D. You have, I think, something called a Science and Technology Directorate. Sounds sort of ominous, but what are your priorities in terms of research and development?
I think because it sounds ominous, we just call it S&T.
Yeah.
And what we do with and propose for S&T is that we restore the research and development funds it has to the FY11 levels. Those funds were cut dramatically in the FY12 budget. That was a cut that we opposed, continue to oppose, because particularly in the Homeland Security area, research and development long-term needs to be done. The research cycle is not an annual cycle or even a biannual cycle. It takes a while. But we are focused on biodefense. We are focusing it on explosive detection devices. We are focused on research in the cyber area. Those are three of the areas of focus within the S&T Directorate.
So how can you assure us, since both some of us serve on other committees, Mr. Dixon and I serve on Defense and Intel, that what you're doing has any relation to what, should we say, others are doing across the spectrum here? What level of assurance can you give us that we're not, even though you're some reductions in your R&D budget, fairly substantial, you've raised several priorities, including explosives and biologics. How do you, who's out there as sort of the gatekeeper in terms of assuring that we're making the investments we need to do and they aren't in any way duplicative?
With respect to the other major funded department that receives monies for these things, we are constantly working with them, looking to see whether there are technologies or things that have been deployed, for example, in the military context that can be altered or adjusted to use for our work so that we don't unnecessarily reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So there's a constant interaction at the agency staff level on that regard.
So you're assuring us that you work with all these other, with the DOD, FBI,
yes,
and other agencies to make sure that we are not duplicating.
Yes.
Okay. What's the a lot of the colleges and universities are involved in this research and development. What is their role?
Well, we have in the
so-called centers of excellence.
That's right.
And how do they relate to this particular issue?
Well, we reach out into the academic community. I think this year we have 32 million or so there. It's a competitive process for a university or so to be named, but we are looking there for basic research. For example, in Representative Price's district, there is a large center,
good choice.
Of Bio. But he left.
Yeah, he did. He was assured of.
Would you let him know that I referenced it? Thank you. There is a bio center there. So what we do is identify where we need to begin the research cycle, where there are things that we would like that academics can do, and then the money is awarded appropriately.
And lastly, you have about 230,000 employees under your Department of Homeland Security umbrella. They have a lot of systems, information systems, and I'd like to know, I'm sure other members would like to know, how those systems interact, and more importantly, how well they're protected from the sort of attacks we're talking about here. And do those systems talk to one another? One of the things I think we've found out here, there are a lot of systems are sold, and there are a lot of vendors protecting, obviously, their systems. What are you doing to assure us that the systems that are legacy systems or new systems that may be bought, that there's actually what we'd call, used to call interoperability and such.
Let me take it in two bites, Representative. There is money in the budget to continue consolidation of data systems within the department. As you know, we're comprised of what were formerly 22 different agencies, and we have lots of legacy systems and the like. So that process continues to be funded under the President's request. That's one set of systems. The other one I think you're referring to is all the data we collect, TSA, CBP, ICE, criminal data from the FBI. I would invite you to visit the National Targeting Center if you wish, but we have now been able to consolidate, not necessarily consolidate, but to make interoperable all of those data systems, so on a real-time basis we can target and monitor cargo and passengers traveling to and from the United States.
And lastly, we used to call it need to know. What exists today to assure, certainly, that people's privacy is protected under the Constitution, but that we also achieve what we want to achieve, which is to have instant communication, which would keep us safer.
Well, you're right about the privacy issues, and they are important. We operate under a need to share information, and one of the more important things we do is take intel that has been generated in Washington, D.C. and translate it into products that can be shared to private sector that may be implicated and to state and local law enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Louie.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Secretary. I want